I'm bad with microphones. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2022 Pride Program Shattering Barriers, celebrating the first openly gay judge in the 8th Judicial District, Honorable Grace M. Hanlon. My name is Andrea Congerti, and I have the honor of serving on both the Richard C. Falla LGBTQ Commission and the 8th Judicial District Gender Fairness Committee alongside Judge Hanlon. I think it's important to note that Judge Hanlon's achievement is significant, not just for the fact that it was a first, but also the fact that she was able to receive cross endorsement, which is a feat in and of itself. I've been lucky enough to get some one-on-one time with Judge Hanlon at some of our events, and besides her hard work and achievements in her legal career, I think maybe the key to her success is she's so cool. She's honestly one of the coolest people I've ever met. But she has the most amazing stories, and she's just truly a genuine person. So it's been an honor getting to help plan this well-deserved celebration. All right. Before we get started, I wanted to thank Meredith Moen, Judge Ogden, and Matt Skinner for helping me plan this event, and our speakers for being here today. I also want to thank the Jackson Center for being so accommodating and helpful, and a shout out to Ed Tomasini, who is allowing us to stream this live. I also want to thank my wonderful fiance, Tanya, for organizing all of the food for today and just for supporting me in everything that I do in life. So thank you, you're the best. And so today we have three speakers, Judge John Ward, Brian Ball, and Mitch Nowakowski. I just wanted to say that if we have time at the end, we're going to open it up for questions. So if you're in the Microsoft Teams event, if you could just put your questions in the chat, we'll do our best to address them at the end. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Judge Ward.
Thank you all for coming. Those that are watching, thank you for doing that. It is indeed an honor for me to be here today on behalf of a woman that I've known for now going on 3 decades. And this being when I received the call from Meredith asking if I'd be willing to speak, this being Gay Pride, or Pride Month as they call it, and you know, Grace being the first openly gay woman to be elected to the state Supreme Court in this district. I said, of course, I'll be there. I'll be there for Grace, and I'll be glad to give a little background on her career. Is basically what I was asked to do, and a little bit of about our working relationship, which was fantastic. I watched the, as I was telling Grace earlier, I wasn't able to be at her swearing in because I had been exposed to COVID and I didn't want to take the chance of being a spreader. And so I watched it, though it was video, and I watched the entire thing. And by the time Chuck D'Angelo got finished introducing her family, I think half the allotted time for the program had been used up. And I said to her, if they all lived here and voted for you, you didn't need the cross endorsement. As you know, Grace brings a tremendous amount of experience to the bench. She started, in private practice for a number of years. She's had that civil experience, civil law experience. She interviewed, and I hired her in 1992 as a part-time assistant district attorney. And as she noted in one of her interviews afterwards, that she felt a little pushback from time to time. She was the only woman in the district attorney's office and one of the few practicing, attorneys in the county. But all of you who know Grace know that somebody pushes her, they're going to get pushed back. She served well as an assistant district attorney. She then became part-time assistant public defender, maintained her private practice, but got experience at doing criminal defense work. And then was hired back in the district attorney's office for a number of years, and eventually full-time first assistant district attorney, most recently under former DA, now County Judge David Foley. And I had the opportunity to see her in court on numerous occasions, trying cases, involved with Judge Foley and prosecuting some very major cases for Chautauqua County, and just was thrilled to see how good she was and how she'd come along as an attorney and how polished and how well prepared, and she always had been. I mean, she had all the qualities that you could hope for as, you know, an attorney and a prosecutor, as defense attorney. And, you know, I'd like to think that maybe when she first came to me, or when she first applied for the job and I hired her as an assistant DA, that maybe that was the first tiny baby step that took her on the trajectory that landed her where she is now. You know, I got to take a little credit for something. And as an assistant DA, as a prosecutor, you know, we as prosecutors, we're all in a quasi-judicial position. If you're the defense, on the defense side, you have an obligation to your client to do everything within the realm of ethics to defend that client to the best of your ability. As a prosecutor, you're interested in obviously following law and ultimately seeing that the right thing is done, and justice prevails. And Grace was excellent. I had many, many pretrial conferences with her, both as a prosecutor and as defense counsel, but mostly as a prosecutor. And she was always fair and reasonable. And she always knew the strengths of her case, the weaknesses of her case. She was always able to negotiate a case when necessary. But if the defense dug their heels in and wouldn't respond to what Grace believed and what I might have believed, although I kept my mouth shut, to be a reasonable offer, she would put the gloves on and she'd get in the ring and she'd fight. And she'd fight to win. And she was very, very good at that. Good at settling cases, but always with a sense of fairness. And I was reminded when I looked at the video of her, I think it was a news interview that she did on Spectrum, I can't remember. And she was talking about a deposition she was involved in. And she said the attorney on the opposing side, this was when she was in private practice, obviously, at some point. And I don't think she'd been an attorney that long. She said the opposing counsel started pushing her buttons to the point where the court reporter, who we both know very well, opened her eyes and was looking at her like that. I guess Grace went on, and anyway, she followed up by saying that one of the attorneys in the firm took a look at the transcript and said, "You can't do that, you can't do that." Chuck D'Angelo came in and said, "Way to go. You know, you stand up, don't let them push you around." But one piece of advice, you don't know me to tell you this, Grace, you will come up against attorneys who will try to push your buttons. And they will try to goad you into some type of an error and say something on the bench that, on the record, that may be useful on an ultimate appeal should that occur. Don't let that happen. When you feel the anger rising up, take a recess. Don't go get a drink of water. Do something. If you need to call the attorneys into your chambers and talk them down, do that. But they will try. And I remember when I was first elected, before I actually took the bench, but after the election, we had to go to what we call Judges Boot Camp. It was down at the Hotel Dorset in New York City. And one of the presenters was Judge Vincent Doyle, the late Judge Doyle, who was a crack attorney and a wonderful judge. And one of the few things I took away from that seminar was Judge Doyle saying, "Now when you all get on the bench, I want you to remember do one thing, and you'll never regret this." I said, "I want you to pretend there's a big sign in capital letters sitting right there in front of you on the bench that says, 'Shut up.'" Because every time you open your mouth as a judge, you're taking a risk. You know, especially when you've been a trial attorney and you see the way somebody's doing, I wouldn't do it that way. Let it go. Just like Judge Doyle said, zip. I also was very touched, Grace, when, you know, because I couldn't be here, you did mention that in your acceptance speech in this very room. And you said that I'd been an inspiration to you. And that honestly brought a tear to my eye when I saw that. What a great compliment. What a wonderful thing to say in front of other people. And for me to know that I did help. I mean, I know I'm just one of a gazillion people that have been there pushing and helping and doing what. But to be called an inspiration is probably one of the highest compliments I could be paid. It's terrific. You know, after her stint as an assistant district attorney, while she was working for an assistant DA, my former law clerk, Paul Andrews, took his retirement. I needed a law clerk. So once again, I raided the district attorney's office and had Grace come up, and I think I sent Paul Andrews down to talk to her first to see if she might be interested. When he reported me back that she was, I said, all right, to my secretary, get a hold of her, schedule up here for an interview. So she came up one day. I don't know what she thought the interview was going to involve. But I sat down and I put on my most serious face, and she sat across my desk in my chambers, and I said, do you want the job? And before the words were out of my mouth, she said, yes! And, you know, I can't help but think that once she made that transition, now she's an employee of the unified court system. Now, whether that edged you a little bit closer to be in a position to run for judge, I don't know. But it couldn't have hurt it. Couldn't have hurt. You were great to work with. She was great in a lot of ways, as a lot of people don't know everything that a law clerk does for a judge, and I'm not going to tell you either. But in addition to researching and, you know, writing, drafting opinions and things like that, the law clerk has to also run some interference for the judge from time to time, take some calls from people who aren't too happy about this or that. The judge can't really talk to them. She's also an ambassador to the legal community for the judge. And there are other things, behind the scene things that a good law clerk will do. I'm sure she and Mike have had several discussions about that. And I think, by the way, your choice of Mike Siri, law clerk, was an outstanding one. And I know he'll do a great service for you. The other thing that Grace and I shared is a sense of humor. Angela mentioned how she's cool, and she is cool, but she also has a great sense of humor. And in this business, especially in the criminal side of it, the tragedies that you deal with, a sense of humor is essential. You have to be able to not joke about the cases or the tragedies, but you have to have a sense of humor to get you through. My dad taught me that a long time ago. And Grace and I both had a wonderful sense of humor. We could joke. Sometimes we could get a little raunchy. But hey, not dirty, but she was okay with that kind of stuff. Sometimes she would instigate it. Finally, I've got to say that, Grace, this is Pride Month, that I am incredibly proud of you. Number one, for your perseverance in getting to where you are now. You had several setbacks. You got up, you dusted yourself off, and you kept fighting. And to become the first openly gay woman elected is another reason that I'm extremely proud of you, because it does set an example for those who have different orientations, that, hey, if I'm good enough and I'm talented enough, there should be no barriers. I should have an equal chance at the goal, the job, whatever it is that I'm looking for. If in the dictionary there were a picture next to the definition of perseverance, there'd be a picture of Grace Hanlon. So let me finish up by saying, Judge Hanlon, I respect you, I admire you, and I know you'll do a great job as a jurist. Grace Hanlon, the person, I love you. May the best be for you forever.
That was amazing, though. Thank you, Judge Ward. Brian Ball, up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you to Andrea and Meredith and all the organizers for this terrific event here today, for inviting me to be a part of this and share a few words about the friend that I am so privileged to know, the Honorable Judge Grace Hanlon. I first met Grace sometime in the years leading up to the 2016 campaign for the New York State Supreme Court. I am by profession a very political person, so just a word of warning that political things may be mentioned. My name is Brian Ball, and I have been the chair of the Stonewall Democrats of Western New York for the last 12 years and been involved with the organization in some form since about 2005. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, Stonewall Democrats is a political advocacy organization founded by a group of amazing Western New York activists back in 1994. These incredible people gave of their lives to blaze pathways with the belief that all citizens, including the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, should be treated equally by their governments and communities. Stonewall has since become the largest LGBTQ+ political advocacy group in the counties of Western New York, and we exist to further equality both legislatively and electorally, and to leave the world a more equal and better place than we found it. I remember hearing about Grace's interest in the state Supreme Court before meeting her, and the prospect of her candidacy was incredibly exciting. Party and community leaders touted her as well-respected and well-qualified, and also someone who would have the history of becoming the first openly LGBTQ+ Supreme Court justice for our district. Little did I know at the time what historic understatements those all would be for Grace. When we first talked on the phone and met in person, there was something about her that I still can't quite put into words, but I'll try. Judge Hanlon, you are at once such a calming presence, more than a steady hand, and such an authoritative and empathetic person. As I got to know Grace Hanlon, I came to know her as a type of kindred spirit, someone who always understood and was willing to listen. Grace began coming to Stonewall events, making time for our meetings, and she quickly became a part of our Stonewall family. And it was not long before we endorsed her candidacy. I would stand and watch as Grace, who had just driven God knows how long to come to one of our events on Allen Street in Buffalo, I'd watch her talk to person after person, listening and actively engaging with them and finding out what they cared about and what they needed. And that says nothing about the countless people that I would talk to in the legal community, lawyers and judges and folks who knew Grace Hanlon. Every last one of them would speak nothing but your praises and relate stories of how you helped them, guided them, and been a friend. It was also during this time that I first became aware of the famous Hanlon family. Never more so than when I took part in filming a campaign commercial behind the Albright Knox Art Gallery. Seeing how close, how caring, how devoted your very geographically diverse family was to you and you to them is something that will never not be an inspiration to me. Our entire community was behind Grace Hanlon for State Supreme Court, and we were so excited for the history she would make. While there were some troubling political winds nationally, we never stopped campaigning, working for, and believing in Grace. In politics, you see it all. You see folks who should be in office and never quite make it, and you see folks who are incapable of performing the duties of an office and are nevertheless elected, and everything in between. Still, I wasn't prepared for the heartbreak of election night in 2016. As a former Senate staffer for Secretary Clinton, I will never forget the gravity weighing down as I stood in the Javits Center that night, seeing the presidency slip away, fearing for what that meant for my civil rights as a gay man and millions of other LGBTQ+ people across our nation. There came a point when I kept checking my phone to see the elections at home, and all I could do was hope that Grace Hanlon would make it across the finish line. She is so good, she just had to. While much of the time after that election was somewhat of a blur, I remember talking to Grace in the days after and witnessing firsthand the spirit of practicality and resilience and determination that she embodies so perfectly. In the years that followed, I got to know Grace even more, and for that I'm forever grateful. Grace, you didn't go away after that election. You stayed and became an even more integral part of the community, both the LGBTQ+ community in Western New York and the community at large. You never stopped caring, and you never stopped being there. Through the heartbreak and tragedy of life, you never stopped, and we never stopped caring about you. I'm sure many in this room, if you're involved in Western New York politics in some form, knew the late Bruce Cogan, a former chair of Stonewall. Bruce was one of your biggest champions in countless meetings and phone calls. In the years following, Bruce would always begin a discussion of the year's elections by asking, what about Grace Hanlon? When is she going to run again? We need her. I so wish she had been able to see you be sworn into office, Judge. In 2021, it finally happened. Once again, the hardest working and most expertly qualified mind for the bench was a candidate for state Supreme Court. And that mind, that brilliant understanding and fair temperament was elected to the court. A mind and a person who just so happens to be proudly LGBTQ and shattered the glass of history's barriers because of it. Not to mention the fact that with your election, you brought the seat back home to Chautauqua County and provided much needed geographical diversity to the bench. If there was an election to any court that I am more proud of than yours, Judge Hanlon, I cannot think of it. To see you eminently respected among your peers, loved and beloved by all the beautiful, diverse communities in Western New York, elected to the state Supreme Court was an achievement, the result of your tenacious, hard, and dedicated work, and so well deserved. I have the privilege and pleasure to say that on behalf of Stonewall and the LGBTQ community, we are so proud to have Judge Hanlon on the bench. You give us pride every day by doing the job Western New York elected you to do. Congratulations, Judge, and thank you for always being there for us. And a happy and powerful Pride Month to all. Thank you.
Last but not least, Mitch Nowakowski.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and happy Pride. There are a few things that I was thinking about on a wonderful and sunny drive here to Jamestown from Buffalo, and it was a little bit funny because I thought, wow, we have all this wonderful LGBT representation, the mayor of the city, we have myself serving out and proud on the Buffalo Common Council, Grace Hanlon, people in Rochester, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're Anita Bryant's worst nightmare. We're finally taking over. But then I thought, wow, we're not taking over, we're just existing. We're just achieving our potential. We're just finally getting our achievements that we fought and that we earned, our place here in society. And I think about Grace a lot in the sense of, you know, my own journey of coming to the Common Council. And I'm honored to be able to speak here. And before Grace was on the bench for many years, she was a part of our Stonewall family in Western New York. Grace is a woman who is helplessly affable. She's so kind and so nice. And it really reassures me and in the community that when cases come before Judge Hanlon, we have a real human being looking at these cases. That understanding that, look, life can get complex and things happen, and look at the case and apply the law fairly, but apply the law without judgment to people and judgment to circumstance. now we live in a world where I feel like everything is becoming more superficial. When we come across a genuine person like Grace, we will never let them go. But I'd also, like to say that when I think of my journey to the chambers of Buffalo City Hall, I can't help to think of Grace, or shall we say the Graces of the world, gays and lesbians who began their careers in far different times, who thought they would never get to where they wanted to go in the world or in their careers because of who they are. Think about it. Ellen DeGeneres came out in 1997. I remember being a kid in the line at the grocery store where that Time magazine said, "Yep, I'm gay," was at the stand in the checkout aisle. I remember people in line in front of me saying, while pointing to the magazine, "That's disgusting," while moving their children to the front of the line so they wouldn't read it. Now take a moment and think about that. Think about the hostility and the ignorance of the time, and think about folks like Grace, who had the courage to wake up in the morning and nevertheless be herself and persevere through life in her career of law. We've had the former county judge talk about Grace's fighting spirit, but that fighting spirit is within me and in the LGBTQ community. It's something that we've had to have. It's something that we've had to be tough on the playground when bullies wanted to push us around. We've had to be tough when people wanted to overlook us or count us out or to make sure that we are forgotten. Or also, we've had to be tough for our civil rights. Picture being a young kid at the kitchen table where we had to have our own rights be a hot topic on The View. Our own dignity was at stake. Our own acceptance in the world was for speculation, for fodder, for something to be determined by folks from different churches or up to the opinions of people that have absolutely no idea who LGBT people are. I've noticed a lot lately that it seems that people want to be different, but we need to encourage people to be themselves. Grace got here in life, but also on the bench of doing just that, being herself, being smart, intelligent, hardworking, a deep thinker, fair-minded, and honest. One thing I know for sure is that Grace will serve as an inspiration for many in the field of law. I am so incredibly proud to stand up here and speak about Grace and what Grace means to the LGBTQ community. I said a little about this during her nomination, but she wasn't allowed in the room at that time. But I am proud of the woman who refused to get knocked down in 2016, but got back up and kept moving. I want people to know that, because in life, you're gonna get knocked down. You're not gonna always get what you want when you want it. Life isn't always going to be fair, but you need to have the resolve within yourself to be resolute in what you know is to be true and what you deserve, and to keep moving. You know, I was telling somebody earlier today that I'm finally within, I'm a new elected official, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm becoming more of myself and getting my feet from under me. And instead of just plowing through life, I'm learning to say, I gotta stop and smell the roses, or take a ride to Jamestown. You gotta reflect and realize who you are and where you've come and kind of put things in perspective. And I always think about the little kid within me, within Grace, within anybody out there in the world, because it's important to humble yourself and realize where you come in the world, and to not just run through life, but to also learn and grow and experience it, and not run through life, but walk through it. So I also, think about the time when I loved reading the Buffalo News. I would read it front to cover. It's the first thing I learned to read. And I was raised by my grandparents who chain smoked and drank coffee and read the newspaper every single day. And I was thinking about, how I wanted to be active in politics, because I loved being in the community, and I loved how they fought for issues and they stood up for things and stood up for people. And I thought to myself, I looked out into the window and thought, well, does that really include me? Because some people think I'm a freak. Are they going to accept me? If they can't accept me, how are they going to vote for me? How am I going to get to where I want to go in the world and to achieve my dreams? And so I'd like to always remind myself of that, because there are still kids out there in that world. They might not be LGBT. They can be a different race, a different color, a different religion, somebody that feels marginalized, excluded, and overlooked. And in my parting words, I'd like to talk to that kid, and I'd like that kid to know who Grace is, and talk about her in an abstract way that we can all grow from for years to come. When her term expires on the bench, what she did for this community will always stay, and lessons that we'll draw from forever. So I would like to speak out to that young kid, that wherever they are, I hope that they see this. The kid that feels that they will just never fit in, or the kids that was called a freak in school, the kid that doesn't understand just yet that they will have a ton of friends, someone that loves them, and will be accepted and excel in any field they desire, who can accomplish their dreams. May that kid look no farther than the bench of New York State Supreme Court.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Now we are going to have the presentation of the certificate, followed by remarks from Judge Hanlon. We will have Judge Ogden, the chairperson of the 8th JD Gender Fairness Committee, Judge Winslow, the co-chair of the PHALA Commission, and Matthew Skinner, the executive director of the PHALA Commission.
On behalf of the New York State Judicial Commission on Women in the Courts, 8th Judicial District Gender Fairness Committee, we are honored to partner with the Richard C. Fowler Commission in recognizing the Honorable Grace Hanlon with the Shattering Barriers. What we do as a committee, statewide committee, is we are empowered to fight against bias and discrimination of all sorts, so that everyone who enters the court system can believe that they will receive equal justice. Grace's election to the New York State Supreme Court is another shining example for all the LGBTQ plus children, adults, families, and community members that enter into the court system to look at someone that is just like them and to feel assured that they will receive equal justice. So Grace, on behalf of the Gender Fairness Committee, we already gave you our Lamplighter Award. So we are honored that you are being recognized because your accomplishment and the election and the judge that you are is going to be an example for the court system in Western New York for many years to come. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I didn't plan this, so it'll be short. You know, Grace has been a member of the PHALA Commission before she was elected to State Supreme Court. So we're very proud that one of ours has made this achievement here in the 8th Judicial District. We have been proud of her all along. All the things that have been said about who she is as a person, she's brought that to us, and we've been very grateful for who she is. And we've seen her trajectory, and we know that it's not peaked yet. So we're looking forward to the future years of Grace Hanlon, Judge Hanlon, and congratulate you.
Thank you so much. I just want to, it's hard to think of something that hasn't been said yet, but it's been wonderful to get to know Justice Hanlon the last few years, and to see it sort of culminate in her swearing in, and this moment today has really been special. And I want to thank especially Judge Ogden and Andrea for the months they put into organizing today's ceremony. And it's just such a treat to say nice things about Judge Hanlon. And thank you all for coming today.
Our certificate says, in appreciation of the hard work and courage that shattered barriers for women and the LGBTQ community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was hoping I would get a grip before I had to come up here. Thank you, Andrea, Meredith, for organizing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Judge Winslow, Judge Ogden, Matt Skinner, and the Committee on Racial and Gender Fairness, the FALA Commission, for this tremendous honor. Thank you, Judge Ward, for the kind words today. You've been an exceptional mentor to me since you hired me back in 1992. And just the other day, I was trying to resolve a criminal case, and I told the attorneys that I was ripping a page from the Judge Ward playbook, and it worked. So thank you. Thank you, Brian Ball and Mitch Nowakowski, who have been my friends and my supporters since 2016, never failing, always there. Really, really good people and good public servants. They do a tremendous amount for their community, so thank you both so much for the kind words. I've struggled with what to say today because I am a relatively secure, gay, married woman. I've not always been that. I've attained a career that was beyond my wildest dreams as a kid in Long Island and New Jersey. And like Mitch said, we've all developed a thick skin when you're born knowing you're different than everybody else, but you can't say it. So you develop a thick skin. I've also developed a thick skin because I'm the youngest of 10, and I was involved in a campaign for an over 7 or 8 year period. But I was also a closeted gay woman for many years, mostly out of necessity and fear, which also thickened my skin. When I was younger, it was scary to be a gay woman. Many of my decisions as a younger person were dictated by the discrimination in both our laws and the people who were against LGBTQ people. For example, I did not apply for ROTC even though I was in law school, so it would pay for law school, even though I was encouraged by my brother and my father, who both had military careers, out of fear of being dishonorably discharged as gay. I did not apply for any job at a law school that included a security clearance. And I looked at the applications and the requirements very carefully. Not anything that required a background check. I did not talk about my private life at work because I knew people who had lost their jobs because they were gay, lost scholarships because they were gay. I did not visit certain states because of the laws that they had against our community. On that rare occasion when I was younger, when somebody would figure out or ask me if I was gay, and I would always say yes, I would usually get back, well, that's just a phase. Or I would get, you're sick. Or you just haven't met the right man yet. Some of the members of the FALA Commission, we went and visited law schools recently. And it shook me to meet some of these law students in 2022 who are experiencing the same discrimination that I experienced as a closeted gay woman, the same fears that we had back 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that they are afraid to apply for certain jobs, that they still get bullied. Since being cross-endorsed to be a judge, I've been asked several times since, why do I have to mention that I'm gay? You're qualified to be a judge, as if the two are mutually exclusive. I proudly say that I'm a member of this community because for years you could be well qualified for an array of elected positions, but never think of running for them simply because you were gay. It automatically disqualified you. I saw the other day on social media a banner that somebody put up who happens to be somebody who was an elected official in this community for many years, and it said, "What we need is to celebrate Straight Pride Month." And the comments underneath that posting were about You know, if you want to be gay, go ahead, but don't tell anybody about it, and I don't want it in my face. They want to put us back in the closet. They want to shame us. And we cannot and will not go back in the closet to make others feel comfortable. I have been asked why the Stonewall Democrats are named after a Confederate general, Stonewall Jackson, when they're named after the Stonewall Inn in New York City, which was raided by the police as a gay bar in 1969. And as a result of that raid, gay people were arrested for simply being gay, which was a watershed moment for the gay civil rights movement. Harvey Milk said in his 1978 Hope speech, "If you help elect more gay people, that gives a green light to all who feel disenfranchised, a green light to move forward. The anger and frustration that some of us feel is because we are misunderstood. And friends can't feel that anger and frustration. And the young people who are coming out, the only thing they have to look forward to is hope. And you have to give them hope. Hope for a better world. Hope for a better tomorrow. Hope for a better place to come to if the pressures at home get great." And if you don't know who Harvey Milk is, he was the first openly gay man elected in November 1977 to public office in California as a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. And this was during a time when Anita Bryant was blaming the drought in California on gay people. Frank Brunei, a New York Times columnist, recently said, "It's a hell of a thing to have your identity, your dignity, your very hold on happiness pressed into partisan politics and fashioned into a political weapon." The answer to those who have asked, why is it important for me to accept honors like this today, to attend these functions, and to proudly state that I'm a member of the LGBTQ community? It is because while things have gotten better, there are still many in the community who do not get treated fairly or fear coming out because it will negatively impact their career. It's about empowering people who feel disenfranchised and showing them that they can break through barriers and not hide who they are. It is about those young law students being able to freely apply for any job that they're qualified for, to know that they can achieve any goal. I hope that because of events like this, people who hide their true identity will feel empowered to run for political office if they wish, or speak more openly about their personal life, and not be ashamed of the person they are, so they can find happiness within themselves. I am grateful and honored to be here today. Thank you all again for your support over this journey. And to those who feel disenfranchised, keep fighting, keep your head up, and keep doing what you feel is the right thing to do. Happy Pride. Thank you.
Congratulations. I don't think that we have any questions in the chat, so if anybody has a question here, if not, we have food out in the lobby. If you don't want to eat it in this area, you can bring it downstairs. Oh, we do have questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, excellent question. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of the points that you two brought out, and also Grace that you brought out about the importance of modeling, and that we need those models in our community. It is so important. You did use one word that came to me earlier today when I thought about this, and I did something stupid this morning. I hit on clickbait. It was not a Daily Cost website, what can I say? But it talked about the rhetoric that is still out there against the LGBTQ community, about preachers that are saying we need to line them up and shoot them in the back of the head, and things like that. And I think back, you mentioned 1997. 1977, when I'm standing in the line and I can't get out of the line, and I'm being verbally abused by people. And I'm 22 years old and I can't get out of the line because it was, I had to pay my money. I felt powerless. I felt like there was nobody out there with power who could support us. And I never think of you as powerful, Grace, you know, except your ball swing. But I think that is also an important component that we need as a community to know that we are starting to see people in positions of power within the structure of our society, and that they are role models, and that you have this opportunity. And you will never wield your power in ways that are not with integrity, because that's who you are. And yet, you do have that opportunity to wield power with integrity as a model for our community. And I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. I remember going to a Melissa Etheridge concert in the 90s at Darien Lake, and it was fenced in, and I went with some of my friends and I walked in, and when I say every person there was a gay woman, every person there was a gay woman. And just being and knowing there were all these other gay women in the same community was empowering for me. So thank you for that. Yes, Judge Winslow.
You may have just answered my question partially. I was going to say to you, was there either an experience or experiences or a person or persons who empowered you or made your journey a little bit easier, and that may have been part of your answer?
Well, my sister Ginger is here. And my sister Ginger is also a gay woman. And I'll tell you a really short story. In the fall of 1981, Ginger came out to my parents' house in New Jersey. I was a senior in high school, or soon to be a senior in high school. And she told my parents that she was gay. And my father looked angry. And then she proceeded to tell them that she was going to have a child in the spring. And my father slammed his fist on the table and walked in the house and slammed the door. And my mother just looked at my sister, and I think your girlfriend was there too, looked at my sister and said, "How did you make that happen?" And then there was a whole conversation about a fertility clinic in Greenwich Village, which was the only one that would take care of gay and lesbian people that were trying to get pregnant. But, you know, my sister definitely forged the way for me. She made it a lot easier for me. But, yeah, it was just meeting other gay and lesbian people in Buffalo was very empowering for me. You know, there was a gay bar on Niagara Street called Compton's. They didn't have a sign out front. They didn't have any lights. They actually had a panel in front of the door so you could sneak out in the dark if you wanted to. And everybody parked across the street because you didn't want to park next to the gay bar because then people would know you were gay. But going there was, in an odd kind of way, very empowering too, because I met a lot of women that had really big-time jobs, but were very much closeted. So, thank you. Is that it? Thank you.